Thank you. I have a special guest, Rick from Intech Mechanic. I like just to let people know this is one of my favorite interviews that I get to do. Someone I've actually looked up to as a mentor from afar. And thank you, Rick, for sitting down with me today.
Oh, thanks, David. That's awful kind of you.
Well, as we get into it, tell me what is your role and what do you do?
Well, my company is Intech Mechanical Company. We are a commercial HVAC plumbing contractor that also does HVAC service and controls, which is the on-off piece of the business, the smart side, so to speak. And my role is the president of the company. I'm the founder. I started it, gosh, almost 30 years ago. In May, it'll be 30 years ago.
Wow.
And so it's gone from nothing essentially to, I don't know, what do we have? 180. We run between 180 and 220 employees, depending on what's going on. And commercial HVAC, plumbing, piping, fundamentally our jobs are hospitals. We would do a lot of work for Kaiser, Sutter. We're doing the remodel of the Capitol Annex downtown. I mean, it's that kind of stuff. So, when you hear HVAC and plumbing, people have certain stereotypes and, service plumbing and that kind of thing. And that's not what we do at all.
Well, I love the story because knowing you for a long time, knowing your background, do you mind going into how you decided to start and what was that trigger for you to go off on your own?
Yeah, it's kind of a dumb story, honestly. I mean, keeping in mind that I don't, I didn't finish college and I don't have a business degree or anything like that. I'm a tradesperson, started in the business when I was 18, digging ditches, and just worked my way through the ranks. So at the time I started the business, I was working for another mechanical contractor in town. I was a project manager. And the reason that I was doing it at all was because my ex-wife Julie and I had decided that we were gonna that she was gonna stay home with the kids to the maximum extent, and I was just gonna make the financial part happen. So what that meant was uh, I had to do side jobs to make ends meet. So my salary almost covered the bills for the most part, but if you needed tires for a car or, whatever, then it was like, oh my gosh, where's that going to come from? So I started doing side jobs and I didn't have any notion of starting a company, full time. It was just a side gig and I'd make $1,000 here and $1,000 there, which was a lot for me back then. And I was a youth pastor, so I mean, really, what I was more focused on was the church stuff than I was anything else. So what ultimately happened, without it being too drawn out, is that I just did a side job that was big. It was about $35,000 of, was sell price, which again, back in 1995 was a lot for me anyway, working out of my little house. And the guy told me after the fact, he goes, well, hey, you can't do this after hours or on weekends. You have to do it during regular working hours, period. So you need to decide whether you're going to do that or not. And without too much thought, I just thought, well, okay, I'll let's just jump in and go. And so there was no business plan, no written business plan, no money, no nothing. Just jumped off the cliff, basically without a parachute. Away I went. So that's how it happened. There wasn't a lot of why, what, planning, none, any of that. It was just go.
That's so awesome to hear that still with back then, obviously the money was a necessity as your wife stays home. Now, is that something that's part of your core values, that the reason why the mom stayed home and you go to work, or does your company values align with that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I was raised by Depression era grandparents, right? My mom's parents did most of the raising. So born in 1909, 1914, my grandfather drilled in my head that is my job, to support the family. You know, this very traditional 1950s Leave It to Beaver type of a world. And it was deeply, you know, it was part of what I believed in. And so, and it wasn't, you know, I mean, if Julia had wanted to have worked, it was fine. You know, I mean, some, it wasn't some dictate of some on my
Yeah.
part. I mean, it's great if she wanted to, but she wanted, we both wanted it that way, right? And we thought that it was better for the kids. So, and it does align with our company values, because our company values, I mean, we just won best place to work in Sacramento in the large category. Just when was that? Last week, I guess. And you know, those values are about people first. And again, it isn't about someone saying, you know, the wife should stay home. I mean, because everybody's different, right? Some families, you need both incomes. I mean, especially in today's world, I think it's tough, right? So you need both incomes, but you know, I felt like that was for us, that was the right choice, and we certainly support that here if that's what people decide to do, or if it doesn't work, you know, we have a lot of women that work here who are, you know, flexing in and out, and you know, we let people kind of figure their life out and try to tailor the work schedule, we'll say, around what they got going on.
That the family first and the people first, that's a core value of mine. And I love to hear that still in your business today, you're still putting that at the forefront 31 years later.
Yeah.
So if we go into the business itself, what are some of the biggest challenges that you're seeing in today? I know that obviously technology has evolved, and you being in a larger category with HVAC and so forth, how's technology in this world affected you?
Well, technology has revolutionized what we do. I mean, you know, we used to, for example, we detail all of our jobs to the nth degree. And so you know, in a construction world, what we try to do is create Lego kits, for lack of a better term. So we try to have it all figured out to where everything's cut, measured, labeled, bag tagged, and then you just assemble it like a Lego kit. That's what we're all going for. And we used to do that with pencil paper, mechanical drawing. You know, the way I learned to do it back in the 80s was with pencil paper, you know. And of course, now we're building everything in Revit. It's 3D. It's all, you know, computer driven. It's a completely different game. Same goal, but what you've done is you've mechanized what we used to do with pencil and paper, and it used to take us a really long time. And now we can do it a lot, you know, a lot more quickly. And really the same thing on a simple level. You know, we used to estimate by hand, right? We would handwrite all the stuff out, and then we'd get on a 10 key and we'd calculate and run the numbers and do all this stuff. And now it's in Excel, right? You just populate quantities in Excel, it auto extends, and boom. So the world has changed a lot. But as far as biggest challenges, it's definitely workforce. I mean, it's humans.
Mm.
Humans are the biggest joy and the biggest pain in the ass, and the hardest thing, you know, the hardest thing
Yeah,
to not only to find good ones, but it's hard to retain them. You know, there's that whole game, the whole game's won and lost with people. And that's
yeah.
the hardest part.
Now, where do you foresee the future of your industry going? Is it going to be VR, where you start setting up stuff and then people just put on the VR set and be able to walk through what your plan is going to be? Do you realize that AI is going to be something that could automate some of these processes that you already do? What is your view of what the future looks like for
Yeah,
Intech?
it's all those things. It's all those things. We already have some VR stuff going on where you can walk around a job with the VR stuff on, and move your head around and see what's in the model and see it where it would be. We already can do that. And we do it. And then yeah, AI, we've got some AI stuff going on already where we use AI sparingly as it relates to just, you know, simple tasks that you say, hey, give me a checklist on this particular payroll issue, right? And AI will spit something out that really all you have to do is take what it spits out and you need to edit it, because it's not entirely correct, but it's probably 75% correct. So yeah, it is changing things, and I don't know. At the end of the day, we're still going to need people to execute it. And in my world, robots are never going to assemble buildings. They just don't. They never will, or not in my lifetime. Let's say that. I mean, I'm 60. It's not going to happen in my lifetime. Maybe down the road somewhere, maybe. I mean, there are some robots that do certain things, but the nuances of what we do, the piping and the ductwork and where it goes and how it goes and putting it up in the real world, that's still going to be humans.
That's a good thing that you're talking about. So if a younger person wanted to get into the trade that you're doing currently, know that your job is going to be secure, what would you suggest someone in order to get into a field like yourself?
Well, and we're working really hard at workforce development as in high schools and even junior highs. We've partnered with our local unions and Roseville School District, and we do a lot of stuff with Wood Creek High School over here. The way to do it is they're reintroducing classes that are, what we used to call shop classes. We all, back when I was a kid, had, welding and auto mechanics and stuff like that. It was just part of the deal. And of course that stuff's gone away because everybody thought, well, we don't need that. Everybody goes to college and then everybody has this $200,000 a year job and everybody's happy. And certainly that hasn't been the outcome. We still need these trades. So if somebody wanted to get into our business, depends on what track they want to go down. If they want to be a tradesperson, there's doing your stuff in your high schools, and then our unions have entrance tests to get into, and they can go down that track, or they can go down the detailing, computer aided drafting track and learn, it used to be AutoCAD, now it's Revit, and all of that sort of stuff. And the last thing I would say about that is that nobody should ever thumb their nose at the trade side, because those people are my sheet metal pipe fitter, plumbers, and all those folks are around. The journeymen are all $90 an hour. So if you do that math, total package, that's 180 grand a year. That's what these people make. So nobody, and when they go to school, their school is paid for by all of us. So there's no student debt. They go for 5 years, and they do, it's like a normal school schedule, 2 days a week, normal semesters. And they're getting paid while they're doing it. And they start at basically half of that 90 bucks an hour and work their way all the way up to the 90 in 5 years. And of course, that cost is going up. Every year it goes up a couple bucks. So it's a good gig, man. Being a tradesperson is a good gig. It really is.
Yeah, that's great to hear, because I think people put their nose down because we have so much technology. We have everything at our fingertips, that they think that that's the only way to go. So to get other businesses like yourself in here, and then be able to put it out to other people, that's great to hear. Now, on the other side, now as we get more towards your life and how you were raised and so forth, what was it that made you, because being an entrepreneur is very hard. What was it that helped you, besides what your wife did and be able to needing to get the money? Was there a mentorship that you had to get you moved up to there?
Back then I don't, my mentors were all, a handful of folks in church, but that was more on a spiritual life level. That wasn't on a business level. What helped me, what made me an entrepreneur is I'm just wired to be an adrenaline junkie, and I'm really, the way I'm wired, I can be fearless to the point of being reckless, and so you notice the story I told you about starting Intech.
Yep.
It was just like, hey man, how bad can this be? And just go. And I can be like that. So that's how, that's the motivation behind it, is really just fear of boredom. Let's just go and do type of thing. Not everybody's wired that way, by the way. And you have to recognize, I think, that if you're wired, however you're wired, it can be your greatest strength and your greatest weakness. And see, for me, it's a strength in one way, obviously being reckless or being, sort of just jumping out there. That can be really dangerous too, especially in business. So I've had to learn to sort of, you know, throttle that down and be a little more, you know, thoughtful a lot of times. And of course,
Oh,
I've surrounded myself with people that offset that offset that too. I'm smart enough to hire people that are better than me, smarter than me, who can help, sort of manage that. So does that answer your question? I think that
it
answered.
it it does, and you touched on a base of that recklessness can get you sometimes in trouble. If we looked at it, is there some failures that have come from that recklessness?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of failures, really. I mean, I was just trying to think. Most of my biggest mistakes have all been hiring mistakes, personnel, and putting people in a position of leadership where I assumed, you know, number one, I shouldn't have picked them. Number two, I should have managed them better, or, made sure they were doing what they were doing. And all those things were done fairly quickly and fairly sort of in a, kind of skimming the high points way, assuming that people will do what I would do, right? I mean, that was sort of my baseline assumption. It's like, oh, you're going to do what I would do, and they don't. And so those are probably my biggest failures, were all in the business, were personnel related. Another example, I suppose, is a few years ago, we tried to open a branch in Reno. And I was like, yeah, how bad can this be? Oh, look, my light turned off. There we go.
We'll talk about Reno.
It's one of those auto lights. I'm sorry. Um, and I was like, well, yeah. And I did a decent amount of preparation, but I found I kind of just went, all right, let's do this. And it failed. It failed. And so when something fails, you just see, the thing about it is not to fear failure, and to know that whatever decision you make, you can almost always course correct. And so, right, you start the thing in Reno, it loses money. You finally wake up one day and you go, well, all right, bad idea. And you pull the plug on it and you shut it down, you take your lumps and you course correct and move on. And I mean, that's how I do stuff. And it's fine.
Wow.
It didn't kill us.
That, well, what's the worst it could do is that it could kill you.
Yeah, worst it can do is kill you. And I certainly wasn't risking that much. It
Yeah.
was in the course of our business, it was, oh, if it was even 3 or 4% of the revenue, I'd be surprised. It was a small piece.
So you made a calculated risk during those
Yeah,
times.
yeah, calculate a risk, and then you just pull the pin and move on, you know.
Now, when we're talking about some of those business decisions, now, is there any on the personal side that your risk taking has got you? I mean, I've known you had a tore up your knee one time mountain biking. You've torn
Yeah.
up shoulders. Can you go into depth of that adrenaline that you have done outside of work?
Yeah, Tom Lay, who you're good friends with, and I used to skydive together, and we did that for years. And in my skydiving career, I've what broke my wrist, landed in the grapevines once out there, because we jumped in Lodi. I landed in the grapevines, and it wasn't my fault, because it was had something to do. It's a long story, but anyway, we both ended up out there. And that could have been bad, because you land on these stakes the stakes that hold the grapevines up. That without telling you how that might go, that could have been bad. Um, I mean, I've done high altitude mountaineering and been a couple times, you know, pretty bad situations. And so yeah, I mean, yeah, there's I've risked life and limb to feel alive, you know.
Well, if we go back to like what's the one thing that is like I just have to keep doing that your adrenaline has always loved? I know you've done mountain biking, you've done jumping out of planes. Now you're into what is it? Pickleball?
Yeah, well, pickleball, yeah, no, I'm not into pickleball. I mean, I played it one time and ruptured my Achilles, so that tells you that I'm trying to be more athletic than I probably actually am. You know, the thing I want to do, I mean, I'm 60, right? So I'm not, you know, the reality is the physical clock's ticking and my ability to do things is going to start waning here pretty fast. There's a few high altitude climbs I want to make while I can still do it. They've got to happen in the next 10 years. That's probably my main thing. Um, so yeah, that's what I want to do. And I'll keep skiing, you know, till I can't. But I see people that are 80 years old skiing, you know, they just slow
Yeah.
down a little bit. So I'm pretty sure I can hang with that.
Wow. Yeah. I from afar, I love to watch it because there's some of the stuff that I just would not do. I would not jump out of a plane. It's a perfectly good plane. Why jump out of it?
Because it's a
Mount.
heck of a ride down. That's why.
He said those 2 minutes is just the joy that I
Oh,
need for the day.
it's the best. It's the best.
That's awesome. Well, as we get close to wrapping up, one of the things is like you are entrepreneur, you are adrenaline junkie, you have a different mindset than a lot of people, but you're very knowledgeable, you're very educated on through life. What are some of the books that you would recommend to anyone for both life advice or business advice?
Well, if we're talking about free, I mean, you know, there's so many books and you can read too many books and get filled with a bunch of knowledge that you don't ever execute. So one of the things I would caution people on is just filling your head with a bunch of empty knowledge that you don't ever do anything with. I mean, if I use the example of skiing, it's like reading 1,000 books on skiing, watching videos on skiing, and never clipping skis on and going, right? You don't want to be like that. So the books that have made a huge difference for me, two of them are by Patrick Lencioni. One is The Five Dysfunctions of a Team. That is how our business is structured as far as how we do the practical administrative supervision stuff. You know, it talks about trust and accountability and all those things. And it's an easy to follow model. That made a huge difference in our company. The other one that he wrote, let's see, Ideal Team Player. And that's about identifying people who fit into the culture of the business. And you're looking fundamentally for humility. I mean, you're actually interviewing not for skill set, but you're interviewing for character. And he shows you how to do that. He talks about why and all that. And then one I read recently, it's called The Seven Primal Questions. That's personal. And that's a book about why you do the things you do and why you do the crazy stuff you do. Because we all have some version of crazy, right? Because it's either raised in homes, anything from abusive to whatever experiences that inform how you do things today, either consciously or subconsciously. It speaks to that and it helps you identify why you do some of the crazy crap you do and how to take some steps out of it. So real short read, real easy, real straightforward, not a big psychobabble book. It's real practical. So those three books I think are the best things I've seen.
I think the leadership one is very key, and I have never read the seven primal one, and that one I actually have it on my Amazon to download. It's something that I read the Cliff Notes and definitely worth reading. So well, as we get ready to wrap up, Rick, one of the things that I always ask is, we've talked a little bit about your personal life. We talked a little bit about the business life. What is one question you wish that I asked during this conversation, and why?
I, I had to think about that because we talked about this before. And I think maybe some questions around succession, because succession, everybody is always concentrating on the climb, like the uphill climb, and how do you, some people are all the way at where do you start? Some people are on their way up, some people are getting towards the top. When you get to, or maybe I don't know that there's a top, but there's some place. And then there's a point when it starts going the other way, when you start being my age, and that succession thing can't start when you're 60. It needs to be back somewhere, and it needs to be baked into the cake. Developing people who can replace people, and the continuity of the machine. That's something that should be baked in almost from the get-go. And I didn't do that very well either, not till fairly recently. So I think I would say succession. So
I think that's a key thing, especially as a business owner, and as I get more CEOs on the podcast. Understanding succession plans is a key thing that nobody talks about. I still look at you fairly young, so I don't know how your succession is. But then again, you've been doing this for over 31 years, been very successful. You've helped do some parts of the Sacramento Kings new arena. I'm very proud of the things that you've done, especially in our area. And I look up to you from afar, because you have accomplished some of the things that I can't wait till I get there. And you've done it in a manner that people gravitate to you. And that's
nice.
the skill that you have, the gravitation, and the things that you put out there to people, they see it. And I just want to commend you for you being you, Rick. And I appreciate it. So,
all right, thanks, David. I appreciate that.
Definitely. Well, as we wrap up, Rick, I really appreciate you coming on, and I can't wait till when we get a little bit further down the podcast to have you on again.
All right, bud. Well, I sure appreciate it, David. It's good talking to you.
You too. Take care.
All right.
Cheers.
See you.
Thank you for tuning in today. I hope you found this helpful, and I hope you'll tune in next time. For more information on how we can help your business, check out our website at sigmaways.com. I'd love to hear your feedback. Please send me a message with any topic or questions you want me to cover. Also, if you're in the world of business and technology, I would love to have you as a guest. Please hit the like and subscribe button below and stay up to date on the next video. Once again, I'm David, and this is All Things Business and Technology. Cheers.